And put something in front of it, like a sign or whatever that says,
This is your life.
"This is your life." Ivan Rasmussen.
What's your name? What is that, Gear? This? Gear, what does this? Little knob? Sticks out?
Yeah.
Smile, you're on.
Okay, now.
Canon camera.
That's a pretty good picture.
Here it is.
Look, I'm getting ball welded. Look at that.
Don't like me.
We're recording all this.
You don't say you're bald headed, you just say you look at how much hair you got. Your age.
Really?
You gotta think of the positive side of it.
Okay. Grandpa, tell us the first thing that you remember. Furthest back.
First thing I remember is when I was 4 years old, my brother died. They gave me his orange for my birthday.
Do you remember what year that was?
No, I don't remember the year. Why don't you?
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had 13 altogether, or 12 altogether, brothers and sisters.
And you
I
were
had 6 half brothers and sisters.
what number in those?
Which?
Were you number 5 or 6 or
7.
7? So there was 13 counting you?
12.
12 counting you. Okay. And where were you born?
Born in Mink Creek, Idaho.
Tell us about it.
Well, I don't remember much about when I was born. They tell me I was born in the granary up there. My dad and mother just homesteaded a section of land, quarter of a section. They didn't have a house built, and I was born in a granary.
Were you ever there when any of your brothers or sisters were born? Do you remember that?
Remember what?
Do you remember when any of your brothers and sisters were born?
Yeah. I remember when Delora was born. She's 17 years younger than me. I don't remember just when the others were born, but I remember plainly when she was born.
Were you at home then, or?
I was home. Yeah.
Okay, tell us about some of the games that you used to play when you were younger.
Oh, I used to play baseball, play horseshoe, and prisoner's base, and kick the can. We played a lot of different games. Done a lot of boxing and wrestling.
What was your favorite sport?
Baseball. Played first base for years.
Did your mom and dad keep you too busy to play much? Were you busy with chores, or?
Well, we was busy with chores during the week, but Dad, he always figured it so we could get off on Saturday afternoon. We always had Saturday afternoon off, and we were supposed to go to church on Sunday. We generally did.
I understand you also went swimming on Sundays.
Well, yeah, we'd go swimming once in a while after church. Ride over at the river, about 2 miles over at the river, horseback.
Dad, why don't you tell us a little bit about your father and his, you know, he was a polygamist. Why don't you tell us a little bit about his second wife and where she lived and how you had to help her in a few things?
Well, Dad was a polygamist. He had he hid for a long time, for about a year, to get away from the officers when they were around catching them, take them to prison. Dad spent 6 months in jail, but I can't think
Was
of
it Iowa? Ohio?
it.
Some state like that. How was it they caught up with him? How did they ever catch him?
Well, they had a hard time catching him. Dad always hide and know that they were see him when they was coming. But this time he run out in the corn patch, and they had a little dog that followed him out there. That dog started to barking and come out and then run back. So they went down there and they got a hold of Dad.
And then they took him right to another state, huh? Put him in.
Yeah, Detroit, Michigan.
Was he able to write letters or anything to you while he was there?
Oh yes, he could ride home. We spent 6 months there, and I remember one experience he used to tell us that he took carpenter work while he was there, and he had a little piece of shaving in his mouth when he went in, and he spit that out when he got in the house and where they eat. And one of the officers saw him, and he had to stand up with his arm folded for 2 hours facing the light.
Well, and he was there for 6 months, was he?
Yeah.
6 months. Now, was this before he went on his mission?
Yes.
Well, before he went back on his mission, huh?
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about his mission? How old were you when he was called to go on a mission?
Well, I was about 12 years old when he went on his mission.
And where was it he went? Where did he go on his
He
mission?
went to Denmark. Spent 27 months in Denmark. We used to send him $25 a month. Had a hard time getting that.
What did you do to get that? Did you sell milk or eggs or what?
Oh yeah, we sold both milk and eggs, butter.
What did you call his other wives?
Aunt Nancy.
You just had one? One other one besides your mother?
Did she what?
Did he just have one other wife besides your mother?
Yep, just
And-
one other wife.
And you called her Aunt Nancy?
Her name was Nancy Nelson before she married him.
And you used to help quite a bit with her chores and work and things, didn't you?
Oh yes, we had to help take care of her place. She had a place of her own up farther in Mink Creek. And we'd have to chop wood for her and put up the hay and things. She had a bunch of cows, and she was a midwife. That was her occupation. She went out and took care of the sick people.
How did your mother feel? What were her feelings about being a...
Mother felt all right about it because she was born in a polygamist home. She was the fourth wife of
Her mother was, your mother's
my
mother.
mother, yeah.
Mhm.
She tells a story about Aunt Nancy coming there before they got married to see Dad. She'd sit on his lap while Mother got dinner.
She was a pretty
She
good
was-
woman.
She was about 7 months pregnant.
When he married her?
When he
Yeah.
married Aunt Nancy.
Huh.
Married her shortly after that.
How many children, or half brothers and sisters did you have then from her?
Well, I had 5, or was it 6? 6.
So how many altogether did that make it?
There was 18 brothers and sisters. Brother.
That's incredible. Did everybody have their own chores, their share of work to do?
Well, Aunt Nancy didn't live with us very much of the time. She had a place of her own all the time. We always had chores to do. We had cows to milk. We had to get up before school and milk our cows. And Dad, he didn't believe in milking cows or anything like that.
You had the boys do the work, huh?
Well, Mother always helped milk.
Did your dad ever get real mad at you?
Oh, he'd get mad as He was a Danishman.
What was his favorite punishment for you?
No, the punishment mostly was flipping your ears and pinching them. I'll tell you, that can hurt if they flip the back of your ears.
You got a little bit of that from him, huh?
That's what goes on like
Is that what
that.
he used to do to you, Nickel?
Tell us about any trips you went on when you were younger. Do you remember any trips you went on as a family?
Well, not while we was, not before I got married. After I got married, why, we went on trips over to the river and like that, fishing. Fried the fish over there and had a good time.
What river was that?
Bear River, about 2 miles from where we lived, right over the hill. I guess Hazel can remember that.
Not too well. I think before you tell about when you got married, why don't you tell about where you got baptized and a little bit about that? I think that's interesting.
Well, I got baptized when I was 8 years old. Aunt Nancy lived up further up Mink Creek then, and we went up there, and I changed clothes there and put on my baptismal clothes, and I was barefooted, and run for about a half a mile up the road in snow and mud. It was snowing and muddy that day.
What time of year was that?
What day were you baptized? On your
I was
birthday?
baptized on my birthday,
What day is that now?
18th of March.
And do you remember who baptized you?
1990. Janice Keller baptized me.
Why didn't your dad baptize you?
I don't know why Dad didn't baptize us. He done all that after a while, but
Did you say they used
remember
to...
him blessing us or anything. But he was all working in the church.
You mentioned once that they called one man in the ward to do all the baptizing. Is that right?
Well, they used to there for a while. They just had one certain man to do the baptizing. But it wasn't at that time. This was later when they had that.
Did they have a regular church built then? Did you go to church in a church house?
Yeah,
or-
they had a regular church, the old rock building, a big rock building. Where we got the church.
Was that up in, where was that located?
That was up in Mink Creek.
Oh, at Mint Creek itself?
No,
No.
it's where the new church house is now.
Mhm.
What's the first church president you can remember?
Oh, was it Joseph Fielding Smith or Joseph F. that went in? Went out when Heber J. Grant went in.
Joseph F.
Joseph F. Smith, I can remember it. I was down at conference when they released him. Went with Dad down, and I guess I was about 8 years old. I don't remember for sure.
And any of your other brothers and sisters go with you?
No, not at that time.
What did you ride in to make that trip?
We went in a buggy, horse.
Didn't you make a few trips with your dad to sell fruit or something too when you were younger?
Oh yeah, well, he used to go peddling a lot in the fall of the year. We'd go to Brigham we'd take 2 outfits, go to Brigham and get peaches. And we'd take them up to Idaho, up to Soda Springs and Bancroft, and around there and sell them. Take us 2 days to make a trip one way. We'd be gone about a week.
Did you ever meet any other presidents of the church?
Oh, I met Heber J. Grant, shook hands with George Albert Smith.
When you were old enough, did you go to school?
Yeah, I went to school, but not like they go to school today. We'd go about maybe 2 or 3 months out of the year. We had to chop wood for home and for out dancing. We had janitors to school. Chopped wood there. They all burnt wood.
So in those days, they held school, but you went whenever you could make it.
Yeah.
How many years was it you went to school?
Well, I went to 5th grade, you know.
Did you ever go to Preston to school?
Yeah, I went to Preston school for about 3 months.
Do you remember any of your teachers?
Yeah.
Did you ever get in trouble at school?
Not me. Oh. Well, you asked me who I had for teachers. Had Miss Reed, Mrs. Fisher, Martha Sweeter, Mrs. Larson. That's all I can remember that I had while I was living in Glencoe. Had Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Frost and Mr. Borton and
Did you go on a mission?
no, never went on a mission. I don't know why Dad didn't send any of us kids on a mission.
None of your brothers or sisters went, huh?
Well, I had a sister go, Beatrice went.
That was after
That
she
was
was
after
married.
she's married.
Did you go in the army? Or was it military?
I was next up when the fighting stopped, First World War.
Grandpa, can you remember anything mischievous you did in your youth?
In school,
Oh, in school or just as a young boy?
oh, I've done a lot of things that I haven't better tell.
Oh, God. Tell us a few.
We used to have a lot of fun in school. We had a big hill right where the schoolhouse was. We'd sleigh ride there all winter and had a lot of fun there.
Were you ever in any trouble with the police? You were telling us the other night about that.
Well, I had the police come up and get me one day when I was way up on a haystack. So I might have to go with him to Preston. So I went with him. But come to find out, it was another guy that had been stealing my aid checks. Post office there in Preston had boxes to put the mail in before they sent them to Big Creek. And he knew about where it was, and he could reach his hand in around and get the mail. He got several of my aid checks. And
So they thought you were cashing your forging checks, or?
he'd cash them, you see. He'd cash them down in Logan. And on his way home, he wrecked his car, and they found the stuff he had bought and slip of my egg check in there. And that's when he come to get me, because they thought they had me, because it was my egg check that had bought the stuff.
Tell us about when you first met your wife.
Well, that's the Fort Bragg.
Can you remember?
No, I don't think I was only about maybe 15 when I first met her.
Where were you when you met her?
Well, the first time I ever seen her that I know of, her mother died. We went to the funeral. But I never started going with her then because she was just a little kid and so was I.
What attracted you to her later on?
Gosh, I just got to liking her.
Tell us a little bit about some of the times you took her out, some of the things you did.
Heck, people in them days, they had a habit of, when you took your girl to dance or something, we always went to dance once a week. I'd dance in the ward once a week. when you'd taken her home, they'd come pull you away from her. They called that coattailing then. You wouldn't get a chance to take her home. And a lot of times when I always rode a horse wherever I went, and I've had my saddle taken off my horse and hung way up in the tree when I come out to go home. Have to come back the next day to get the saddle. Had to walk home. That was about 2 miles. But it was all right. It was all fun. We used to have a lot of fun when we were young. On Christmas Eve and like that, we'd go out and Birch Creek would be full of sleighs, wagons, and everything the next morning. We'd run into the creek. We'd ride them bobsleighs down that hill there by my place. That was about a quarter of a mile, that hill, and you could get up there and ride sleighs. Even them big bobsleighs, you tip the tongue back in the box, and you could guide it from there, and you go down that hill, halfway up the other one, and we'd run within the creek and go find another one. Well, we used to do a lot of mischief, but I don't think they do nowadays.
They do worse.
Well, I used to take one of Dad's horses every once in a while. He didn't know it. We'd go sleigh riding. Somebody else would furnish the other horse, and we'd have a good time sleigh riding. I'd brush the horse off good when I got home, get him in the barn. And sometimes Dad would say, "Look like that horse has been worked," or something.
Wouldn't he have let you take it if you'd asked him, or didn't?
Oh, I think maybe he would have, but we didn't do that very
didn't.
often.
Do you remember any Christmases that stand out in your mind?
No, not especially. We just, the ward would always have a Christmas party and a big Christmas tree, and they'd put their presents on the tree and divide them right there in the church house. We'd have a good time, have a dance. You had to dance just right them days.
How's
I
that?
remember the floor manager stopping me a lot of times.
Dancing too close?
They wouldn't let you dance close. You had to stay about an arm's length away from your girl.
When did you decide you were in love?
What?
When did you decide you were in love?
Oh, I don't know. That's hard to say. I thought a lot of that girl all the time and went with her for years. Never did figure out just how many, but went with her for quite a few years.
Didn't she have a few other boyfriends along the line too?
Oh yes, she had a few. We moved to Brigham City, and I stayed down there one winter, and I got word that I better get back up there if I wanted that girl.
What was her name, Grandpa?
What?
What was her name?
What was her
Your
name?
first.
Elmina, E-L-M-I-N-A. Get word I better get back up there if I wanted her, so I went back up. They were about ready to get married the way it sounded. But I got her back without much trouble. We got married
When were you married?
before long after that. The hard thing to do is to ask for her.
How'd you do that?
I stayed right there to her home for a week before I could get it done.
What'd you have to do, ask your dad?
Huh?
You had to ask your dad?
Yeah. See, her dad had married my sister.
So how did you ask him then?
Well, I was outside there one day and I just asked him, got talking to him if it'd be all right to him if we got married. So he gave me a few instructions. He said, "You bet it will."
Do you remember the instructions?
And when we got home from getting married, we stayed down, went to Brigham for a week. When we got home, she went to show her ring to her dad, and Her dad said that was a foolish thing to buy her. She'd better off she'd have bought her flour for it, for the money.
Then where did you live when you were first married? Did you live there with her dad, or?
Oh, we lived so many different places when we first got married. We rented a home or a house, about 2 rooms over there to Arthur Sweeter's. Lived there the first winter or two. Then we'd move over to the farm in the summer. I'd bought the farm a year before we got married.
Oh, that was the dry farm, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a dry farm. We had a little dry farm, and that was a happy time of the life for that living over there in the summer.
Where was it you were married? Which temple were you married in, Grandpa?
What?
Which temple were you married in?
The Logan?
Did you have any kind of a reception or party or anything like that after? Or?
No. All we had was they come and serenade us. They'd do that them days. They'd come and serenade you. They wanted to dance, so we had to give them a dance.
That was after you got back from Brigham City,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Didn't you have to go to Logan the day before you got married or something?
Yeah, I had to go down there to get my license.
And did you stay there that night, or did you go back to Mint Creek?
When we stayed there, we had to go down on the streetcar with a team. We had to go with a team to Preston. I think her dad took us to Preston. And you had to go on the streetcar. And after we got married, we didn't get out of the temple till about 2 or 3 o'clock. It was a long day.
Who married you?
William?
Huh?
Wasn't it William Badge?
No.
No.
Budge. Second president of Logan Temple. I can't remember his name.
Did you ever go to a temple dedication?
Yeah, when they dedicated the second time. When they remodeled it.
Or about when you lived over on the dry farm and what you did over there, you know, how you got your food and what you had for your furniture and the kind of a car you had.
I'll tell you all about it when he turned it on.
It's on.
It's on.
Well, in the summertime, we lived over on the farm. But before we got married, when we went to get a recommend, went to the bishop. That was James Baird. James M. Keller. He gave us instructions how we should live, and we shouldn't go into debt, use boxes for our tables and chairs. And mine, that was my wife, she had already had bought a sewing machine and the stove. She worked at the store up there in Mink Creek for years, and she saved enough for stove and a sewing machine. That little shanty over there, all we had was them boxes, and we'd make a stool once in a while. And it was a good time of our lives. We had all the wild chicken we could eat. You could go out in the brush, and there was a spring close by, and them wild chickens would think you couldn't see them, they'd sit right at the side of you. I took a stick and killed them a lot of times. We always had chicken. One Sunday we had a big bucket full of chicken cooked up, and put down the spring there. The spring was right close to the house, but we put it down there to keep it cool. When we come home, somebody had been there and eat it all. We'd go to church over to Mink Creek. That was about 3 miles. We just had a little buggy, 1-horse buggy. I had a team when we moved over there they got from home. But it was the guy that run the store over in May Creek that took it. He told us about it after. He gave us a lot of candy and nuts for taking it, so we thought we done all right. We had one cow when we went over there, one that mine's dad gave us. One cow. We lived fine. All we needed was a little bread and butter.
Then from the farm, then you moved to a home, was it in Birch Creek, or where did you move next? When you moved back into...
When we moved back to Main Creek, we bought that place there on Birch Creek, halfway up Birch Creek Hill, that log house. Bought that off Martin K. Peterson.
And then how many of your children were born right there while you lived in Mint Creek?
Well, I guess most of them, Woodrow was born over to Sweeter's place. And then the next four, I guess, was born there. Flora and Althea and who's the next one?
Norma.
Norma, was she born up there?
Mm-hmm. And Earl too, wasn't he?
Yeah, Earl was born before we moved to Glencoe. And the other two, you and Cleo, was born there in Glencoe. It was just a log house, and they were just chink they called them, or whatever it is. They put in between the logs and then plastered with mud. Some of them places had fallen out, and it was just about like living outside. It gets so cold in that house in the winter that the water would freeze in the reservoir when there was a fire.
The reservoir in the stove, you mean?
Yeah.
How did you ever keep warm at night?
Well, we'd all crawl in one bed and had plenty of bedding.
What was it you said you used? Didn't you wrap a rock or something to take to bed with you?
Oh yeah, we'd a lot of time take a rock, heat a rock in the oven and wrap it up. That's a good way to keep warm. We've done that a lot. We used to do that when we'd go to Preston on the sleighs. We'd wrap a rock up in a quilt, put it to our feet. We'd sit in the bottom of the box. Once we went to
Yeah.
Dad, do you remember when you first had electricity in your house? Or do you remember a time when you didn't have it?
I remember the time we didn't have it, yes, and when we got it. We used to have a gas light before we got electricity. Right after we moved to Glencoe, we got electricity. They put in a line that came over the hill and over to Mink Creek. We got electricity. That was in 26.
26, huh? Did you ever have candlelight? Ever have to use candlelight?
No, we never had candlelight. We've had just these coal oil lamps.
Mm-hmm.
But then we got gas lamps after that. They burnt gas and they was a lot brighter light.
Mm-hmm. What about radios? Do you remember when you got your first radio?
I can remember when we got it, but that was after we moved to Glencoe, a year or two after. Hiram Jepson was selling them. We bought one off from him, just a small radio Philco.
Oh.
It worked fine.
Mm-hmm. What about water? Did you have running water in your house? And
We had running water. We had a pipe from a spring out in the field. It just ran in the house. It wasn't hot water or anything. All it just came in as cold water. We had to heat our water for washing and bathing.
How would you like to tell about your baths? Your olden day baths?
What?
How about your olden day bathtubs?
Oh, heck, I've told that a lot.
Tell it again.
When we had the bath, we bathed in a tin tub. And they were just hardly hard enough to get water for one, so we all bathed in the same water. All they'd do is just add a little extra hot water when one had bathed, and I was the oldest, so I come in last.
This is when
We
you,
got along, heck, we had a good time. Had 3 rooms.
in a shanty, didn't you?
Hmm?
Didn't you have a shanty?
Yeah, we built a shanty after. I was down away from the house, so.
Tony wants to know what a shanty is.
A shanty is just a frame building just made of lumber. Wasn't a very tight or anything, but we used that for washing and things like that.
And the boys slept there, didn't they?
Well, after we got older kids, they slept down that shanty.
Do you remember the first car that you ever had?
Yep, we got a car right after we moved to Glencoe. That was a 26 Chev. Had curtains for glasses around. It had curtains with there's plastic glasses you could see out of them, but weren't very good. But that was a good Chevy. I hated when I had to get rid of that.
Would you call it a model something?
No, just one of them old 26 Chevs, high wheels, narrow tires. And I could get up to that lane when there's a 1.5 foot of snow in that car.
Mm. Then do you remember the next car? Did you get very many new cars? Or just...
Oh, I had a lot of cars. I got a Studebaker next, great big 35 Studebaker. Knee action. Supposed to have been one of the best in the world, but you couldn't get anywhere when you got in it. I was used to that Chevy, and we could go anywhere with that. But
what were some of the trips you took after when you started taking trips? Do you remember any of the places you went to visit, or any special trips you took out of Mink Creek?
well, we went to Bear Lake. I can remember going over down, put up Strawberry and down, went through Logan Canyon. Remember how your mother used to hang on my leg when we'd go on them narrow roads and holler.
You went to Yellowstone Park once, didn't you?
I don't believe we drove my car to Yellowstone. Can't remember. I know.
But you did go to Yellowstone.
Oh yeah, I went to Yellowstone a couple of different times, 2 or 3.
Didn't you go to Colorado once too?
Yeah, we went in that 35 Chev to Colorado after Woodrow when he got through with his mission.
How'd you feel about having a son on a mission?
Felt good about it. Great experience. We could turn the radio on once in a great while and we could hear him talk.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
What do you mean you could hear him talk?
He'd be talking on radio back there.
You mean making a speech as a missionary, or? Huh.
Yeah, we heard him quite a few times. He'd let us know when he was going to talk.
Did you have a hard time supporting him on his mission, keeping him on his mission?
No, didn't have a hard time. When President Nelson come up and asked if we'd send him on a mission, I said, yes, we'll send him and we'll keep him as long as we can. And he said, I'll promise you, if you send him, You'll be out of debt when he gets back. Won't have no trouble of keeping him. That promise was fulfilled. He's out of debt and had that car bought, paid for.
That's special.
We used to try to go to temple all the time on temple days.
You enjoyed going to the temple, didn't you?
Yeah. I guess I averaged about close to 100 names a year.
Is that when you lived on the farm?
Yeah.
Oh. You had to leave pretty early to get down to the temple in those days, didn't you?
Yeah, we'd have to leave. It was about 45 miles down there. Hiram Jepson and his wife would usually go with him. Brother Carver would go a lot of times with the temple.
What positions in the church did you hold?
Well, I was in the Sunday school when I was living in Mink Creek. And then when I moved to Glencoe, I was put in Sunday school there. I was in the Sunday school for about, it wasn't only about 3 or 4 months. And then they put me in as ward clerk. The bishop died. Charlie Westerberg was the bishop when I moved down there. And he died. I'm a little off my story though. I was clerk, ward clerk while he was bishop, while Charlie was. Then when he died, his brother went in as Bishop Alfred. And I was his counselor for about 7 years. Then he died. And Brother Hiram Jepson, he was on the High Council. They put him in as bishop. And I was his counselor for about 7 years. So I had a lot of experience in the bishopric. And I liked it.
Did you ever meet any of the general authorities while you were in the bishopric?
Yes. Went to Salt Lake once seeing about we putting in a new chimney for there. Well, we got a new furnace. We had to put in a new chimney. I remember going down, we had to see the Grand Richards. And he's always been a kind of a favorite to me. And he said, you can go ahead and do it. And they'd pay so much, I forgot just what it was. He said, I want you to go home. This was during the Depression. I want you guys to go home and teach your people to get a plot of ground and a cow and a sow and 24 hens and a rooster. Then you'll live better than you used to. I can still remember that.
Did you ever get your, when did you get your patriarchal blessing? Do you remember that?
I got that shortly after we moved to Glencoe.
Do you remember anything special about it? Has it had any special?
No, nothing special, only well, it told me a few things that's never come to pass. I don't know whether they ever will or not. Told me that someday I should go to my native parents' native country and preach the gospel. That's been a long time ago.
Well, you still got a few years left. Maybe you can take Tony there and go to Denmark.
Maybe.
Let's see.
Once we went to Preston to conference in the winter. We drove the team down, went in a sleigh. and L9 your mother was with. And they had a big yard out in the back there where the Preston Park is now, where you could unhitch your team and you had hay in the sleigh to feed them. And there's water there. And when we get out of the sleigh, your mother pulled her gloves off. And her ring, she dropped her ring when she pulled her gloves off. And she hated that, so we didn't notice it till we got home. She didn't know where she could have lost it or anything. And she felt so bad about it. I can't hardly tell.
It's okay.
But she prayed about it, and I went to town, went there where we parked, and I found her ring there among the dirt and stuff. That might have been about a month after. She's sure glad about that.
Well, that was a special time to have a prayer answered. Were you looking for it? I guess you went and looked for it.
Yeah, I
and
went
you
and
found
looked
it.
for it.
Not even knowing that that's where it was for sure.
No. She said before I went, we should go there and look for my ring.
Well, that was special. You've been a home teacher for a good many years. How did you feel about being a home teacher?
Oh yes, I've been a home teacher in Mink Creek, and in Glencoe, and down here in Bountiful.
You haven't been a home teacher in Bountiful?
No,
in
Bountiful.
Preston, you mean?
Preston.
For a long time in Preston, weren't you?
Yeah, a long time.
You were in the high priest group. Were you a secretary or something there too?
Secretary of the high priest for 12 years, till they divided the ward. We used to have 75 high priests in the Preston First Ward when I was secretary. I knew them all and knew their ages.
Pretty big calling, I guess, to help take care of the records for that many.
Yeah, it was quite a job. You get interested in it and you like it.
What kind of work did you do when you lived in Preston?
Well, when I lived in Preston, first job I had was testing cows. I had that for 1 year. I promised them when I took the job I'd stay a year. That was an awful job. Hadn't been for my girls helping me doing a lot of the book work, well, I'd have never been able to do it. But I stayed with it for the year. After I quit, they got one guy, and he stayed made one trip after milk and things, about a week it took to get the test. He quit, and then they got another guy, and he didn't stay only a week or two. But there was a lot of work to it. Had to go to, I had 40-some herds, and I had to go to their place twice a month for milk samples and take them home and test them. And keep track of how much the cows eat, everything they eat, and keep track of the calves, and mark them, put their tags in them, and the same with the cows, their mothers, so they could trace back any time to find out which was the mother of a certain calf. And there was just more work to that than you could think of. So when I got through with that, when the year was up, Mother had died. Kids said they wouldn't do the work. So I quit that job. Yeah, I got a job out of that, testing, spud tester. Went around, had to test spuds. Go to the farmers and check their potatoes. Let them know which was number one, and there was 3 different numbers. And I done that for a couple of years. And after that I got a job in the cannery. And I worked there for 25 years in the cannery. After I got through the cannery, well, while I was cannery, I had to have an operation. And I never did go back to cannery.
You enjoyed that, didn't you?
Yeah. They come and wanted me, but I didn't want to go back. Because it was hard work. I never did get very strong.
You've had a few hobbies. What do you like? What is it you've enjoyed doing?
Well, I liked a lot of things. Liked to play horseshoe. And I always built a lot of little toys and things for my grandkids and great-grandkids.
When did you first start to learn to work with wood?
What?
When did you first work with wood? When did you first work with wood?
Well, I always did like to work with wood, but I didn't start building toys and things till much till after I married Louise.
Did your dad teach you anything like that?
Oh yes, Dad was a carpenter. All us kids knew how to do carpenter work, had his different things.
You didn't have power tools though, did you?
Not very often. My brother Fawn, he was a great carpenter, and so was Orlando. And I like carpenter work. I worked with them a lot. I helped build my house there in Glencoe. Helped build the barn. We built a big barn and a new house, 2 new coops right after I moved to Glencoe.
You kind of liked being a farmer, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I like to be a farmer. Farm with horses. Had some of the best horses there ever was, I think.
Do you have any ponies?
Hmm?
Do you have any riding horses?
Oh, yeah. Had Blaze, and he was an Indian horse. Then I had Fox. He was a big, tall, lanky horse. Outrun anything in the country.
What about dogs? Did you have very many dogs?
Oh, I had some dogs. I had one of the best dogs there ever was. He was a good little yellow dog. His name was Dick. And he'd do most anything for you. You could send him out in the field after the horses or the cows. And he's right, whenever you went anywhere, he's right in your heels. You wouldn't think you had him with, because he'd be right back of you. He'd do most anything you can ask him. One day I met Brother Carver. He was coming down the lane with his sheep. He had a herd of sheep. He had a big buck in the herd. And he always carried a big club and a big dog he had with. And he hollered at me just before he got the sheep, "You better get inside the fence." I said, "I ain't scared of that buck with this dog." "Oh, heck," he says. the buck come after me. I just said, see him. And that dog grabbed him by the nose. Buck just swung him around, wouldn't let go. When he let go, he grabbed him by the hind leg, and the buck was gone. Carver says, I'd give anything in the world for a dog like that. He had a dog 3 times as big, and he wouldn't dare look at that buck, he said. That was the best little dog there ever was. And he got shot. Floyd Erickson. I blame Floyd Erickson for that. Maybe I hadn't ought to say that.
That's okay. We can cut that if you want to cut. You even had to shoe your own horses, didn't you?
No?
Shoe your own horses?
Oh yes, I always shoot my own horses. I had good horses too. I had one of the best teams, I think, that there ever was. More sensible.
You
Good.
trained them pretty good.
Oh,
You were just telling about your horses, shoeing your horses, I think, and then,
well, I believe I got through telling
Oh,
about
did you?
them.
okay.
I always shod my own horses.
Do you know how many grandchildren you have?
Yep,
How many?
26 grandchildren.
How many great, do you know?
Greats about 73 or 4.
And have you gone to the great now?
I've got one great-great-grandchild.
Now, whose child is that?
That's Stanton's son.
And Stanton's your oldest? No, he isn't your oldest grandchild, is he?
No, I think Orland.
Arlen is.
him. I know he is.
Okay. Why don't you name all your children now and tell where they live, and
Name all my
let's see if
children?
you can name all your children.
Well, I have 7 children. The oldest one's Woodrow, Thora, Althea, Norma, Earl, Hazel, Cleo.
Very good.
They're very, very good kids.
Okay, now, do you want to say anything else? Do you want to say something that you want your grandchildren and your great-great-great-grandchildren to remember you by?
Well,
Tell your feelings
they
about...
should know I want them to keep living a good life, which they have done so far, I think.
You've set a good example, Dad. I think that's been one of the mainstays in all of our lives.
Well, I've tried to, but I don't think I know quite all of my grandkids. Their names, and great going all my grandkids, but all my great-grandkids.
Well, that's quite a few to remember.
I don't know my great-great-granddaughter.
You did go to see her blessed, though, didn't
Yeah.
you?
They live in Grace.
Oh, mhm. Well, anything you'd like to say, or maybe bear your testimony for us, or feel you can.
So that'd be hard for me to do.
Well, you feel strong about the gospel, don't you?
Oh, yes. I'll say I do.
Your father was a convert to the church. Your dad was a convert.
Yep. He's born in Denmark. Came over here when he's between 14 and 15. Mother's parents were from Brigham City. They came from Denmark too. mother was born in Brigham.
And they met in Brigham City, I guess, then, didn't they?
Yep, that's where they met.
Did they have any children there? Were all their children born up in Mint Creek?
Well, they didn't have any when they moved to Mink Creek, but Torby went down to, well, I guess it was Mandaway and was born down there. I mean,
Your mother
my
did.
mother went down there. My oldest sister, no, she wouldn't be the oldest. I don't know whether she's older than Gertrude or not.
Gertrude was the one that died, wasn't she?
Yeah,
I think Gertrude was the oldest. She was the firstborn.
right. So then Danny. But I don't think I ever saw Gertrude, not that I know of.
Well, you had a good family life, and you've given all of us a good family life, so.
This is November the 6th, 1981. And I'm past 91 years of age. I'm still going pretty good. I don't know what else there is to say.
This is November 7th, 1981. Last night we taped our Grandpa Rasmussen, and now this morning we're going to do some movie of our family. Grandpa Crockett, although he's worried about his hair, would like to say a few things. Go ahead, Dad.
I'd like to give my life history, but since I haven't got enough tape or time, I'd just like to say I was born and raised in Preston, Idaho, and I worked for 30 years at Hill Air Force Base. I'm now retired, and I enjoy my family and my grandchildren.
Thank you, Dad. Mom?
Very good. And I enjoy my children and my grandchildren too. We want to see if we can get the baby to walk.
Tony? That's it? Say a few words. How old are you today?
11.
Talk loudly, I can't hear you.
Past his primary graduation. He's going to be
When are you ordained? When will you be ordained to the priesthood?
December.
This December? Okay, Jakey, do you have anything you want to say? What is it you want to say? You are? Tell us who you love most. You're going to be 5 when you go to school?
Huh?
Who do you love most of all in the whole wide world?
Grandma.
Daddy.
Grandma.
Leslie? Farrah Fawcett Crockett?
Well, I have a
What?
nice family. I'm married into the best family in the world. And come on, 2 sweet little boys. Come on, Brady.
Jakey, will you move so I can take a picture of Brady?
Come on. Hey, you're on candid camera now. Come on. Show everybody how you come on. Cute.
Brady, turn around here.
What is it? Aren't you going to talk to Daddy on the camera?
No, not behind the door. Not behind.
Jakey, say hi to your daddy.
Here he is, Gary.
No, so.
Gary, here he is. Call up on the stool.
Brady,
Hey, Daddy.
Brady. Hello, Brady.
Also.
Hold him up here, Grandma. We can't see him at all.
Patty cake. Let's see. Patty cake.
And also.
Well, he's not going to cooperate. Maybe we can get him later today. Tony, do you and Jacob want to go outside now? Go, hurry.
Now, just toss the frisbee back and forth. Good afternoon.
Hey, goodbye.
Here, Jakey, come on.
I'd give a little talk for church. Now you're going out.
Is it going now, Gary?
Yes, it's going.
Whoa. Go on, Tony, so get over.
What did you say, Dad?
Nothing.
Go ahead, say it.
it going now?
Yes.
You ready?
Stand up and walk around your house.
Okay. Turn it off for me.
No, outside you make, Gary. Tony's gotta go at 5.
Oh, what am I putting this foot on you for? Your brother that needs Sing us a song. Patty cake, patty cake.
Jacob's coming back. Throw the frisbee.
Sun's out.
Jakey, what are you going to be when you grow up?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. What are you going to be?
Fireman.
There.
Tell them about ice cream, how you love ice cream.
Okay.
Tell them how you love ice cream. Bye bye, Daddy. Come on. Do you love ice cream? How do you love ice cream? Look at Daddy.
You look at him.
Tell Daddy the story about Jack and the Beans.
Okay, Gary.
Or Joan.
Patty cake.
Patty cake, patty cake. Get ready crawling off the couch. Come here, Brett.
Brady, can you get off the couch?
Come on, sweetie.
Also, my little dog.
Give it, Gary.
My
Just
little
go.
dog.
Let's move this over here.
You going?
Uh-huh.
Jakey? Tell Mama who you love best of all in the whole wide world. Turn it off.
Grandma. You're supposed to say Grandma.
Oh, give him a
You're
minute.
supposed to say Grandma.
Hi, Brady.
What's the ground?
Patty cakes. Come on, Brady. Patty cakes for us.
Brady, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Where are you, Daddy?
Hey, Tony, can I go back later?
Yeah, Tony's gonna come back later. He had to go.
Why? I got sunburned because on my back. 2 hours right again.
Pull your shirt down, Jakey,
Am I
okay?
sunburned?
See
Yes.
sunburn?
I see your sunburn.
See sunburn?
It's Brady eating.
This is our youngest grandchild. This is our oldest one. Here, Jake.
You don't have it centered very well, sweetie.
It's not in focus.
Yes, it is.
Who's that other?
My speaker. In the lobby.
Okay, Mom and Dad, I want you to tell us
Question you've got.
how you first met.
We were at New Chong Ride, you mean?
Yes, and one of the leaders says, well, I guess she was the president, she says, see that girl going up the steps? And I says, yes. She says, you've got to dance with her in the Golden Green Ball. And I says, no way. But she went and got her anyway and introduced us. And that's the first time we met.
Where did you go on your first date?
I don't know, but it was the 21st of January, 19.
Why do you remember the
47?
date? Or 48?
I don't know, we went together 2 years before we got married.
47 years.
How did Dad propose to you, Mom?
I can't remember.
Did you ask Grandpa Rasmussen for permission, Dad?
No, I don't recall it. We just took him and showed him the ring.
Do you remember the day you got the ring, Mom?
I don't remember what. I think it was the 20th of January.
We was down in Logan.
We had gone to see the show of the golden earrings. It was a beautiful ring.
Still have it? Hold it up here. What a rock, huh?
You have pretty hands.
You are gonna go.
Well, Dad,
About the birth of your firstborn.
The grandma wrapped up in a pink blanket and told me it was a boy, and I said, well, if it's a boy, how come he had a pink blanket on?
I told her beforehand it was going to have red hair because my grandfather had red hair. She says, and then when the nurse showed it to her, she says, you hadn't mentioned red hair when it's not a thing about having it.
Dad, have you enjoyed your retirement so far?
Great. It's the only way to go.
Tell us what you've done productive since your retirement.
Well, I never done anything before and around anything, and I've never done anything since.
Oh, you re-roofed the house and storm windows and
Where have you been on trips?
Seems like I've been busier since I retired than before. Well, I went to Nauvoo on a trip.
Where else?
Let's see. That's all I get.
Did you go to California before you
Oh, yeah,
retired?
I went on a trip to California too.
Up and down Highway 1?
And down Highway 101.
101?
There's Highway 101? Or is it
One, it's one.
One.
Wesley, how are you enjoying Dad's retirement?
Oh, it's great. It's nice now that, you know, we have time we can spend together a little bit more. It's kind of funny coming here and knowing that
both of her
he's
dads is retired, so he's got a maid.
Right.
There's a good shot of Brady eating his Cheerios. Hi, Brady.
Yummy?
Brady.
Look at Daddy.
Brady.
There's Daddy over there with the camera.
Oh, that's
Well, is there anything else you folks would like to say this
I want to
morning?
hear more about when your family was born and
Well, it was love at first sight. The first day he told me he was going to marry me, and I said, don't ever mention that again, or I won't even go with you.
Gary did the
Then
same
I
thing.
gradually and slowly changed my mind.
Took 2 years, but I gradually got her.
Well, you were how old when you got married? 19?
20.
20?
I was 24.
Where did you first live?
We moved into her father's basement when we first got married. And my father owned a rock home with 4 apartments in, and
Just a month or two, we moved into one of those apartments. It was
then we
vacant.
moved into the rock house.
That's where we lived when Gary D was born.
Now, Mom, when you say you moved into your dad's basement, that wasn't the house he's in now, is it?
Uh-huh.
Really? Huh. Dad, you've got a little roll hanging there over your belt. Is that from Spud Nuts?
Yes, that's from
And boy, those spud nuts were good, too.
Who made the spud nuts?
You right?
Whose shop was it you worked at?
my father's shop.
How many did you make a day?
Oh, I made about,
Take those back.
I'd say 75 cents a day.
Sold them for a nickel a piece or else 50 cents a dozen.
Then, let's see, so you were living in Idaho, but you lived in Ogden when
Yeah.
Valerie was born, right?
No.
No? In Ogden? And what did you think when you got that little girl?
She was born on Christmas morning at 4:26 a.m. Nero was 30 years old and still getting dolls for Christmas. A real live doll.
Dad, were you there when Valerie was born?
Yeah, she was born in Salt Lake. She was born Christmas morning, and the nurse picked her up and says she's a living doll.
What about when Tony was born?
We were living in Bountiful. And he was supposed to be born around Christmas time, but he came the 1st of December. And he looked just like Gary D did 20 years before.
Gary was on his mission when he was born.
Gary was on his mission.
So when he came home, he had a 2-year-old brother.
Right.
It's funny.
And they both had red hair. But neither one of my grandsons has red hair.
Maybe we'll get one someday that does. Maybe not.
Well, Dad, tell me. Let's go get some of those spud nuts you talked about.
Well, I'd like to, but my grandfather and grandmother had 12 children. They didn't have one redhead, so they'd have left Gary D with red hair.
It's eating waffles.
Since her husband had red hair, I was the first grandchild to have a red head. We've had 3 of them.
Jacob, what do you like to do when you come to Grandma and Grandpa's house?
Kim had red hair?
3 of them had red hair, and Valerie, she had dark and black hair when she was most.
She must have been a throwback to the caveman days.
Okay,
Come back.
it's going.
Here's your mother. He wants his mother.
He never did like to have his nose white. And Jakey's always been shoving stuff in his mouth ever since I can remember. Jakey's my big boy, and Freddie's my little boy.
And I'm your big girl.
And Leslie's my big girl. We're going to take this movie, and then we're going to go up to Grandma and Grandpa Cahoon's. And Dad, if you'll keep watching in the eyepiece, then I won't jump around so much.
Okay.
And take a movie so that the grandkids will have their picture
It
taken.
used to be Tony's garage. Hold it up so your dad can see it, that little yellow one.
Play with your toy then, Jakey.
Put it on there, make it go down the thing.
Is that fun to do?
What is it, Jacob? What is it, Jacob?
Watch what Brady does.
Gas station.
You can see
This
it.
is mine.
Brady, look over here. Hi.
Buddy, move.
Brady.
Uh-oh.
Can you play the cake? Quit making those noises. We're at the home of my mother.